Hi guys, I apologize for being gone today, especially the start of a new unit like we're starting here. But today I want to get us going on spreadsheets. And so what I'm doing is I'm doing a screen capture video with an audio lesson plan that goes along with this. And I'm going to walk you through the process of creating a spreadsheet and talk about some of the basics that are involved with Excel workbook. What I want you to do is on your dock, go down and find the green letter X. It's right next to the word icon. Go ahead and launch that and open up a new untitled workbook. Okay, I'm going to give you just a second to do that. It's really important that you follow along with me today and that you follow this step by step because I want to make sure you understand this process. But what we're going to do is walk through and create a short spreadsheet today, and I'm going to show you a number of different formulas and values and ways that you're going to actually put this together. Okay, if you take a look at the handout that Mrs. Stock had you go in and download and print today, you'll see on the handout that there are a number of ways of entering data in the spreadsheet. I'm kind of on the center of that handout where it says entering data in spreadsheet, and then it's alphabetized A through G. When you put information into a spreadsheet, data can be put in as a label. A label is simply a way of identifying information in one of the cells in a spreadsheet. It could be entered as a value. A value is generally a number. It could be a formula, and a formula is a mathematical calculation in which we're going to use a number of different ways. And if you look at your handout, you'll see that a letter C, it says formulas, enter manually, click to select, use a function, or use an auto sum. So I'm going to show you a number of different ways of going about doing that. Then we'll talk about alignment, left, center, right, justified. We'll take a look at changing the row height both manually and also from using the format menu. And then we'll talk about changing column widths and some of that manually, as well as changing the column widths from the pulled-out menus. We probably won't use auto formatting, so I'm not going to worry about that today. The other items on the second page of the handout for page setup and borders and shading, probably won't do that today. What I'd like to have you do is just get through the first part of this problem today, and then we'll work with this tomorrow when I get back in the classroom. All right, so by now everyone should be looking at the same screen that I am. It's an untitled Excel workbook. When you first launch Excel, it opens up as a workbook number 1. You see that up at the top. Up here is it's the name of the file. We'll save this after a little bit, but for right now, I just want to call your attention to the way a workbook is laid out. You'll notice that across the top on the rows, they are alphabetized. Okay, excuse me, across the columns at the top, they are alphabetized. And then on the rows down the side, those are all numerical. When you have the intersection of a column and a row, like right here where it says A1, that is called the active cell. And you'll notice up here in the address location that this always tells you where the active cell is. So if I click down here, you'll notice that B5 always appears up here in this address location. Okay, it's really important when you start working with a spreadsheet that you know exactly which cell you're in order to be sure that the data that you're entering or the formula that you're calculating is using the right information. Okay, so what we're going to do today is put together that little fruit sales spreadsheet that is actually on the handout for this assignment today. And I want you to do this with me now, step by step. So please follow this. Do it with me on your workbook. Don't work ahead. Stay right with me because I'm going to show you a number of different variables as we go through and work with this. So what I'd like you to do to start out with is make cell B1 the active cell. Now when you click in B1, it highlights that cell with border, and then it shows you the address up here in the address bar. Okay? What we're going to do first is we're going to enter labels. Okay? The labels are things that identify the data in the spreadsheet. Now it just happens that this spreadsheet has 1996, 1997, and 1998 as the actual labels, even though they're a number. Okay, so sometimes a label can be alphabetic, sometimes a label can be a number. But let's go ahead and let's enter this. So I'm going to enter 1996. Please do that with me. Then hit the tab key. The tab key will take us over to cell C1. In C1, I'd like you to enter 1997. Hit the tab key again. Let's go to cell D1 and enter 1998. And finally, let's go to cell E1 and let's enter total. Okay, now when you hit a return, notice that the values are all right aligned and the labels are left aligned. So you'll see that 1996, 97, and 98 all line up on the right side of the cell, but when I type total, total lines up on the left side of the cell. So labels are always left aligned. A value or a number is always right aligned. Now, even though 96, 97, and 98 is a label in this particular situation, the computer looks at that and says, well, this is a number, so I'm going to right align it. Okay? Now, let's go over and make cell A2 the active cell. And in cell A2, we're going to put the kinds of fruit that represent this particular spreadsheet today. So let's start out with apples. And let's put apples in cell A2. Then I'd like you to go down and make cell A4 the active cell. Let's put in oranges. Okay. Then let's go to cell A6, and you can hit a return or you can just click like I'm doing. Either way will work. I want you to type in watermelon. Now, notice that when we type watermelon, it starts to flow into the next cell. Okay? This cell may not be quite wide enough to accommodate that. And we want to make sure that when we're working with labels and we're working with values, that we're very sure that whatever information that we put into the cell, it recognizes as either a label or a value. And because this is starting to flow into this next cell, I don't want to put numbers in here and combine that with a letter that might flow into the cell. So just to make sure that this cell is big enough to accommodate watermelon, I want you to go up to Format, and I want you to format the column, and I'd like you to choose Auto Fit the Selection. Now notice that Auto Fit Selection just nudged that cell or that column to the right just slightly to accommodate the longest word that we had, which was watermelon, in that particular column. Okay, we'll talk more about that later. This time I'm going to return twice rather than clicking, and in cell A8 I'm going to put in total. All right, everybody got that so far? So we should have our labels across the top for 96, 97, 98, and our total, and then in column A we should have apples, oranges, watermelon, and total. All right, next let's enter data. So let's click in cell B2 to become the active cell. And we're going to represent some numbers here of the fruit for 1996 that were sold. And so we're going to say that in 1996 we had 100 apples that were sold. Let's enter 100 and hit a return twice. Oranges we had 364. So let's enter the number and return twice. Watermelon, we had 775. And then again, I can return twice. Now we'll come back and we'll do the totals at the end because we're going to put that's going to actually be a formula. Right now, what we're entering are values. So let's get all of our values in for each one of the years for each of the fruit. So let's go to 1997. In 1997, we had 774 apples, and I'm going to return twice. We had 987 of the oranges. Big year for watermelon, 3,444. And again, I'm going to return 2 times. Okay, let's go to 1998. We had 346 apples. We had 123 oranges and 566 watermelon. All right. So now what we've done so far is we have created a spreadsheet with labels, and now we've created a spreadsheet with values. Okay? Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to work with formulas. Okay? So when we put in a formula is a mathematical calculation that's going to give us some total information. And where I want the total is going to be starting out in cell in E2. Cell E2 should be the active cell. So please put your cursor in cell E2. Make sure it says that up here in the address window as well. Okay? Now I'm going to show you 4 different ways of calculating a formula. I'm going to show you the hard way, then I'm going to show you a little easier way. A third will be a little easier yet, and then finally the easiest. Okay? So the first one is going to be the hardest way. Now, whenever you work with a formula in Excel, to let the computer know that it's a formula, we start out by first hitting the equal sign. The equal is right next to the delete key. It's the lowercase. So in cell E2, let's hit the equal sign. Okay? So the equal is telling the computer that what I'm going to do next is going to be a formula. And the formula that I want to put in here is I want to add up the value that is in cell B2 plus the value that is in cell C2 plus the value that is in cell D2. Okay? Now, I don't want to use numbers. I never want to use numbers if I don't have to. I always want to use cell references whenever possible. So for this example, I want you to physically type the formula. So equal, I'm going to type in B2, and notice that it captures that with a blue border. I'm going to use the shift and the plus sign, and I want to add to that the value of C2. That's captured with a green border, a shift and the plus sign, the value of D2. And D2 is going to be purple. So my formula captures each of the cells that I typed and color codes them so I can see right here in my formula B2 plus C2 plus D2. Okay, then let's hit a return. Okay, the total that I got is 1,220. Now when I click in that cell, it shows me in the formula bar right here that equal B2 plus C2 plus D2 is the result of this formula that I entered in cell E2. All right? So that's doing it the manual way. That's the hard way. All right? Each way gets easier from here on in. Let's select cell E2 and hit the delete key. Okay? When I hit delete, it says, all right, I'm going to take this number out, which is represented by this string of data. All right? And I want to do that, so let's hit the return key again. And now that formula is gone. Okay? That was doing it the manual way. The next way that we're going to do this is the click to select method. All right? So I'm putting in a formula. The first thing I need to do to let the computer know that it's a formula is the equal sign. So let's hit equal. This time I'm going to click to select the cells. Now do this very carefully. Watch. I'm going to click in cell B2. Then I'm going to click in cell C2. I'm not going to use the plus sign because the computer knows by default that adding is the function that it should complete. Then I'm going to click in cell D2, and now my formula up here in the formula bar reads B2 plus C2 plus D2. Okay, when I hit a return, I get the same result as I had earlier, 1,220. That was the click to select method. Okay, now here's what I want you to be very careful of. I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to hit a return. And I'm going to re-enter the formula, but watch what I do. I'm going to go equal, but I'm going to be in a hurry. I want to get this done quick. So I click to select, but I do this. Notice the mistake I just made? I double-clicked in cell C2. And when I hit my return, okay, my total is 1,994. Now, I know that's wrong because I know what the right number is, but it was very easily done because I wasn't paying attention. I clicked twice and selected C2 in my formula. Okay? Now, if I do that, I can edit this formula very easily. If I just go up here and I click in the formula bar, okay, I'm just going to delete one of my C2s, and then I'm going to hit the return. And now I'm back to working just like normal. I have the correct answer with the correct formula. The thing I want to caution you on the click to select is pay very close attention to what you're clicking because you may be selecting data that is incorrect. Okay, so that's the click to select. The next one under your formulas is called using a function. So let's delete this function and return. And now let's make cell E2 again the active cell. This time what I want you to do is to insert a function. Now, the spreadsheet is a very powerful tool that has many, many functions way beyond what we'll explore. But for the most part, we're going to learn some of the basic functions that are used for the majority of spreadsheet operations. So what I want you to do is go up to Insert on your menu bar, and let's go down to Insert Function. And notice that you have the ellipsis after function, which is going to give you the opportunity to input some data. Let's go Insert Function. Now, when I do that, a formula builder appears. And the formula builder gives me a list of the most recently used functions. These are some of the common functions that are typically used. What I want is a function that's going to add up the value of B2, C2, and D2. And the function I'm looking for is the sum function. So I'm going to double click on the sum. And when I do that, it opens an argument box. And in the argument box, it's saying, I think you want to add the value of B2 colon D2. What that means is, I think you want to add the value of B2 through D2. And that is what I want. That's correct. So if the argument is correct, then I can go ahead and hit return. And there it is. It's the 1,220 again. Notice up here in my formula bar, it says equal sum, left parenthesis, B2 colon D2, right parenthesis. I could type that in manually if I wanted, and you'll find that after you've worked with the spreadsheet for a while, you get used to putting in these formulas. Sometimes it's quicker to just go equal sum, left parenthesis, B2 colon D2, right parenthesis. Okay, you'll get in the habit of just typing that in on the formula bar. All right, so that's using the insert function as an opportunity to calculate a total in cell E2. All right, so that's the third way. The fourth method, and I'm going to close my formula builder, And then I'm going to delete my formula and return. I'm going to make sure that E2 is my active cell. And this time I'm going to do the easiest way to calculate this formula. All right, on your toolbar, you'll notice right here is the auto sum key. Let's go up and click auto sum. When I click auto sum, it automatically goes and chooses the insert sum function, which says equal sum, left parenthesis, B2 colon D2 right parenthesis. It automatically puts that in. Let's go ahead and hit a return. And once again, the total I get, 1,220. So again, this is the fourth way and the quickest and easiest way of getting the total for this particular row. All right? Now, let's go down and make cell B8 the active cell. This time what I want is a total that will give me the total number of fruit that were sold in 1996. This total gave me a total of apples sold in 96, 97, and 98. But I want to know the total of the fruit sales that occurred in 1996. Okay? Which way would you choose to add up this total? You could go and do a manually entered formula of B2, B4, and B6. That would be correct and an easy way of doing it. Or you could do the click to select method. You could go equal, click in B2, then B4 and B6. That would work. You could go equal sum and add up the sum of B2 colon B6 parenthesis. That would be correct. Or we could also use the auto sum. Here's the problem when we use auto sum in this particular situation. Okay, I'm going to go up and choose auto sum. And it says, I think you want to add the value of B6 and B7. Is that correct? Well, the answer is no, it's not. Okay? But what happened here with this auto sum is anytime auto sum sees a blank row, it kind of flips out. It doesn't know what you want to do because what it looks at is that blank row and it says, I think I found an error. And it stops at the line right above that. Now, if I want to use the auto sum function, is all I need to do is put my cursor on this right corner. Notice that it turns from a plus to a hand, and now I have a triangle. If I grab the triangle and drag this up, notice that now I'm capturing the cells that I want included in the formula. So now it says equals sum B2 to B7. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and return. And when I hit the return, the total that I get is 1,239. Now, once I've done that, if I click in this cell, see this little yield sign? If I click on the little triangle next to it, it's simply warning me that there might be a problem with this particular situation. It says that there might be an error that occurred, okay? I know that there wasn't an error, but because there was a blank row involved here, the spreadsheet formula builder is going to say, you know what, I want you just to double check it, okay? But when it does that, I'm going to double click somewhere else in another cell. It puts this triangle in the upper left corner. And that triangle is just there to indicate that there's a possibility that this formula may be incorrect, even though it isn't. Okay? Now, here's a shortcut that I want to show you because what I would like to do is get a total for my oranges. I'd like to get a total for my watermelon. I want to get a total for 1996, 97, and for 1998. Then I would also like to have a total over here for all of those years. Now here's a shortcut that you can use to accomplish that, and it's called using the fill handles. So click in cell E2. Okay, put your cursor on the lower right corner of E2 and notice that there's an open cross, but when I put my cursor right on that little rectangle, it turns into a dark cross. Okay, the dark cross is what we call a fill handle. And when I click and I drag this fill handle down, notice it turns into a diamond. Okay, when I see that diamond, then as I drag that down, it's going to take the formula and it's going to fill it to these other rows. Okay, it puts a 0 here and it puts a 0 here because there are no numbers. Okay, but if I go and look at my formula, this formula says take the sum of B2 to D2. All right, that's correct. When I go to this formula, it says take the value of B4 to D4. That's correct. And finally, when I go to this one, it says take the sum of B6 to D6. Okay, that's because when we're working with our spreadsheet, the formulas that we're using are called relative values. Relative means they will automatically adjust to a new cell or a new location. We'll talk more about that later, but because they're relative, I can use a fill handle to fill those down and save a little time. Okay, now because there are no numbers here, I'm just going to delete this 0 that's in E3, and then I'm going to go down and I'm going to delete the 0 that's in E5, and I'm going to return. Okay, one last step, we're just about done, so hang in there. I'm going to go down to my 1996, and I'm going to see that this formula says take the sum of B2 to B7. That's the value that is a relative value that I want to copy or fill to the right with this fill handle. So put the cursor on the lower right corner. The crosshair becomes a dark crosshair. I want you to click and hold and drag across. Now you have to make sure you get the diamond, okay? I don't want you to get this. If you get the open cross, what I'm doing here is I'm not filling, I'm selecting, okay? That's a selection handle. But if I put it here and get the solid cross, that's the fill handle. If I get the open hand moves that information, okay? It moves it to whatever cell I dropped it in. So the hand is for doing a drag and drop move, the cross is for doing a fill, and the solid cross, excuse me, the open cross is for doing a select, okay, to select a cell, and the solid cross, the dark one, is using that tool to do a fill. So let's take this lower right handle and let's fill it to the right. And when I do that, and then I click out of the total cell, your number should be the same as mine. I should have 1,239 total fruit sold in 96, 5,205 sold in 1997, 1,035 sold in 1998, and the total fruit that I have sold for those years combined is 7,479. Okay? Now, that's just a little bit of an intro to using the spreadsheet basics that we're going to use for creating a number of our projects in this particular unit. We're going to spend 2 weeks on this before Christmas break, and then 1 week when we come back, okay? Just to get more familiar with using the spreadsheet tool. All right, we're just about ready for a break, but before we do that, I want to make one other slight adjustment on this particular piece of data. First of all, what I'd like you to do is to click in cell E1 to make that the active cell. And let's go up to the alignment tab. okay? The alignment, what I'd like us to do with this is to align that text to the right. So let's choose Align Right. That way, our label for our data will be directly above the numbers because our numbers are right aligned. We want that to be right aligned as well. Okay? Now, I want you to save this today. Let's go up to File. Let's do a Save As. And then if this triangle looks like this, okay, we need to open it up and we need to navigate to your Block 3 folder, select your folder, and I'd like you to call this Fruit Sales. Fruit Sales. And then let's do a save. Okay, now you'll notice up at the top that Workbook 1 has now changed from Workbook 1 to Fruit Sales. So the file's been named, it's been moved to your Block 3 folder, all right, and is ready for us to move on to some other functions and features, but we're going to wait and we're going to do that tomorrow, okay? So this gives you a little intro, a little start on some of the things that you can work with on your spreadsheets. We're going to cover borders and shading, we'll cover inserting graphics, we'll cover word art. But what I'd like you to do is, if you finish early today, to play around with some of those functions. Okay, here's my fill bucket if I want to do some filling. Okay, if I go to the Format menu, if I go to Format the Cells, under the Cells window, you'll find a number of different pull downs that will allow you to format the number, will allow you to format some alignment functions, will let you to change the font, will allow you to do some borders. Again, here's another place that we can do some filling. Okay, so there's a number of different places that you'll find a lot of these functions. All right, we'll play around with all of these. I'll show you different ways of going about accomplishing the same thing. Just like in Word, there's usually 2, sometimes even 3 ways of accomplishing a task. Okay, so make sure you have this saved. If you are confused on any part of the video, I want you to go back and look at that section of the video, all right, in order to make sure that you understand the basics for creating a spreadsheet. The assignment that I'm going to have you complete next is going to be the pizza sales spreadsheet. Okay, the template, the data for that is located on the website, on my lesson plan website. It's a PDF file. What I want you to do is to create a spreadsheet that gives me the name of the people that were involved with the pizza sale, and I want you to identify all of the different kinds of pizzas that we had for sale in the fundraiser, as well as the numbers of pizzas that were sold by each one of the club members. So what I want is, at the end of that spreadsheet, I want to have a total for each person as to how many pizzas each person sold, but I also, at the bottom of the spreadsheet, want to have a total for each of the kinds of pizza that were sold. Okay? You'll also see at the bottom of that template, there's going to be a summary called Most Sold, Least Sold, and Average Sold. When you get to that portion of the spreadsheet, I want you just to leave that, put the labels in, but tomorrow when I'm back in class, we'll calculate the most, the least, and the average as a group. So you don't have to worry about that today. But for today, I do want you to identify the totals for each person. How many pizzas did each person sell? And I want you to identify the total for each kinds of pizza that the fundraiser had available to sell. All right, save that file today as pizza sales. Okay, I hope you have a good day. I hope this makes sense and helps you to complete the assignment that we're going to be doing next. Again, do a good job for Mrs. Stock. I appreciate your attention. So have a good rest of the day, and I'll be seeing you in class tomorrow.